because we never do problems like this, you know. And in my engineering classes in college, we used to break down, we derive equations, you know, calculus. We'd use calculus to break down equations that somebody else had already derived before, and I always thought it was annoying because, you know, it always comes down to a simple algebraic expression. Everything in our world becomes very simple. It's kind of amazing, but you know, everything breaks down to a simple algebraic expression. We go through all this proof to back check what these guys had done, but never did we back check our theory of living on a spinning ball, ever. You know, we don't do these problems. Why? Why don't we talk about the curvature? Why don't we talk about the velocity? You know, I went back to school and took astronomy in 2013, and we kind of talked about this, but not in depth like this. So now this shuttle is going to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, traveling at thousands of miles per hour when it comes back in, and it's supposed to come back in gliding. You know, it comes through the atmosphere, and you've seen all those videos where the fuselage heats up, and it's slowing down, of course, as it's coming into our atmosphere. But if this thing is coming in at thousands of miles an hour, you know, and trying to come in from either the north or the south end of that runway, and it definitely has components of velocity to the east or west, and that runway is spinning somewhere between 850 and 900 miles per hour to the east. I mean, this is insane. You know, the little jets that shoot to the side and the shuttle aren't going to do anything in our atmosphere. You know, this is insane. It doesn't work. I mean, really, try to think about this. Try to wrap your head around an Earth spinning. You know, in all the movies we see of space, you know, the science fiction movies and everything, whenever like a ship is coming up on a planet, the planets always seem to be stationary, you know, because if they were actually rotating at the speeds they would have to be rotating for the length of their days, whether it's Earth or another, you know, fictional planet in a movie, it would probably hurt our heads to have to see the ships and things rotating like that. So for Hollywood, and then to make things easier, you know, we see it stationary. It appears stationary. Of course, you could say it's moving too slow, but you know, it's actually moving pretty fast. So, well, Earth is, at least. So anyway, here's the spinning ball problem, but we also still have the curvature problem here. You know, we're flying a great distance, 2,000 miles. And based on that curvature chart I showed you earlier, you know, there's a lot of curvature that this plane has to fly over. So, you know, in architecture and engineering world, looking down on something is called a plan view. So we call this a plan view of Earth. And we cut sections through our plan views to like look at a section through a building or anything we're designing. So what if we cut a section through the Earth here? You know, this is typically what a section cut line looks like, something like this. Okay, so we're going to cut a section and turn our view, you know, up, looking into the plan view. Okay, so let's draw that. Still 2,000 miles apart from here to here. And say, this is LAX over here, and this is JAX over here. Both airports are roughly at sea level. I mean, LAX is right on the water, and JAX is a little bit inland, but I mean, Florida's flat, so it's basically at sea level. So we've got this curve of the Earth, the amount of curvature that we would see over 2,000 miles, and here is our datum line, which is sea level. Okay, so this is LAX, this is JAX. Okay, so this distance here, let's get something, use a different color for this. This distance here to the curve would be based on 1,000 miles an hour, 1,000 miles of distance. Excuse me. I mean, this is rough because where do we actually measure? Do we measure across the curve, or do we measure the distance between the 2 points? You know, miles are linear measurements, but we'll just ignore that and just keep it simple and say 1,000 miles. Now you take the curvature chart, you look on here. See if you can see 1,000 miles. 1,000 miles. The height of your curve at 1,000 miles should be roughly 128.4 miles. All right, so this distance here is 128.4 miles. Okay, our plane takes off, you know, heading this way, I guess, because it has to follow the curve. And it gets up to about 30,000 feet, 33,000 feet. That's, you know, 5 miles. You know, that's, you know, 1 mile is 1 mile is equal to 5,280 feet. So now you're up here somewhere, and you're trying to fly over here, like this, I guess. I mean, you can't fly through the Earth like that, so you still have to follow the curve, obviously. Well, this plane is flying along and follows this curve, right? The Earth is constantly curving, so the plane constantly has to be following the curve. Well, that's a problem because when the rudders on a plane are straight, you know, the flaps or rudders, whatever you want to call them, they're called rudders because it's just like a boat moving through water. You know, air is a fluid, really, and so, you know, when you turn a rudder on a boat, it controls the direction of the boat. Just the same thing in the air. When a plane turns its rudders on the wings or on the tail, it affects its motion through the fluid, but it's just the atmosphere that's flying through, and it controls its orientation and where it's going. So to follow this curve, the plane would constantly have to nose down. The pilot would constantly have to nose the plane down if that's how a plane flies. You know, when I first thought about this, I'm like, that's crazy. You know, the Earth is constantly curving, so it constantly has to nose down to follow it. So I got on the internet and started looking up explanations for this. You know, people have asked this question before, obviously, and the general accepted explanation for this is that gravity does it. You know, it's basically like it's going into orbit, and because you have that force, you have this force of gravity on the plane pulling towards the center of the Earth, it makes you follow this orbital path. You know, it's like a ball on a string spinning it around. You know, the force in the string pulling it towards the center makes it actually rotate around. I mean, that's where the theory of all of our orbits in space comes from, is that force pulling towards the center of mass. All right. But see, there's a problem with that because the rudders on the plane are straight. Not the rudders, the rudders, the elevators, whatever you want to call them, they're straight. But we're following a curve. Okay. So even though the pilot's holding the controls or autopilot or whatever, I mean, they're making little adjustments here and there, but I mean, basically you fly up and you level off. You know, you feel that when you fly on a plane if you've ever flown on a plane before. So what if, you know, you say gravity is the explanation for that? I said, okay, I started thinking about it. That makes sense. You know, I thought about things orbiting Earth, but what if the pilot, let's draw a plane again, say up here somewhere. What if the pilot decides he doesn't want to follow the curvature of the Earth for some reason, and he wants to follow a point, a line that is tangent to the Earth, like this, a straight line. So, you know, the pilot wants to follow that line and not fly. You know, he kind of wants to fly up relative to the curve, I guess, or down, depending on which way you're looking at it. But so now he's got this force of gravity that's trying to make the plane follow the curvature of Earth, based on the accepted explanation for what I was talking about before. So if you want to fly in a line that's tangent to a point on the Earth, then you have to fight that force of gravity that's trying to make you follow the curve. So now it's the same problem in reverse. Now you constantly have to pull up on the controls or nose the plane up to fly in a straight line. You know, with the rudders, you know, you're cutting through the air, but you're flying in a straight line with the rudders actually angled like this to make the plane fly straight. That doesn't make any sense. This doesn't work. That's not an explanation. Gravity is not doing this. You know, where's this curvature? And you know, when you fly in a plane, you know, you'll notice when you look out the window, the horizon, of course, looks flat, and we're told that, you know, the Earth is too big and we can't see it, and it's also at eye level. You know, if there's really a curve, there should be a drop. Now this one, you know, people argue about this one. It's a big argument in the flat Earth, round Earth community, but it's becoming a huge debate on the internet. More and more people are waking up to this. It's pretty amazing. And you know, what we're not taught in school is, you know, in the late 1800s, there was a raging debate going on between, you know, flat earthers and globulists, as they were called. You know, people still believed that the Earth was flat. Well, you know, Columbus didn't sail to America and prove. Everybody just started believing the Earth was a ball. A lot of people didn't believe it, and there's actually I've read some testimonies from civil engineers in the 1800s that just say it's ridiculous. You know, when they're talking about laying train track and all kinds of things. So I'm at a loss here. I don't know what to think. I mean, I'm kind of thinking it's flat and stationary. I've gone to Lake Apopka and I've taken my telescope there, and on the south end of the lake, you know, Lake Apopka is one of the biggest lakes in Florida. I think it's the second biggest. On the south end of the lake with my telescope sitting 3 feet above the shore, I can see the North Shore 8 miles away. Well, based on the curvature chart, there should be, what is that? Based on 8 miles, I should have a 43-foot drop from one side to the other. I shouldn't be able to see the shore. You know, there should be a curve of water in my way. I mean, you can't see it on a rough day when the waves are in the way, but on a calm day, you can. That doesn't make sense. I should not be able to see that. So, I don't know what's going on here, you know. I've had my world turned upside down or right side up by this. I've spent a lot of time researching this, you know, a good 7 months, and I've seen a lot of different things. There's a lot of topics to talk about, but this is the one I thought I'd start with. So, I mean, you guys out there, you can leave comments, call me crazy if you want to, but you got to give me an explanation for this if you're going to call me crazy, and help me out here. I'd love to go back to believing that I live on a spinning ball, and this isn't some massive conspiracy, and we all haven't been duped. But human beings are very easy to fool, and it's actually much easier to fool a human being than to convince a human being that they have been fooled. We come into this world, we don't know where we come from. We don't even know how our thought processes actually work. We don't know how we're able to simultaneously create thoughts and perceive them at the same time. We still can't explain that. So what do we really even know? Anyway, that's getting off topic. This is episode 1. We'll be getting into more. I'll have many more episodes after this, hopefully. So until next time, peace.